Okay, we now have a good idea of our plan of attack for this module. Let's get started with the first step from that plan. This step involves getting set up on the Google Cloud Platform. Here, we are going to make use of Datalab, which is the Python IDE on Google's Cloud Platform. We will connect to BigQuery, which is a data warehouse, and access data from a public dataset. So let's go ahead and get started. The first item on the agenda is to connect to Data Lab from a virtual machine. Data Lab is the Google Cloud Platform's version of Jupyter, that is the Python IDE. In order to run Data Lab on the GCP, we effectively create a virtual machine, provision it, and load an image of Data Lab. Let's get started with this. Before we actually provision the machine, we need to do a little bit of setup. So we are going to get in, choose a project. This is something that we have to do every time we access any resources on the GCP, because projects are effectively containers for billable resources. Here I have a project, it's called data engineering. I make sure that that's selected over on the left. Then on the right, I click on the little icon for the Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell is a web-based terminal window. It opens up an ephemeral session. This is a session where we can go ahead and type out commands on the Google Cloud Platform. So I click on the Google Cloud Shell button. It takes a little while for my Cloud Shell to get provisioned, but fairly soon it's available for me. I then go ahead and check and make sure that I am accessing this project with the correct credentials, and it's true. I am logged in now as Vitthal at lunicorn.com, which is exactly what I had in mind. Gcloud auth list is the command that I ran in order to get this. Fine, I'm now going to go ahead and set a few environment variables which will make sure that the project, zone, and other details required by Data Lab are appropriately set. So I again make sure that the correct project is enabled. That's fine. And I do so by running the command gcloud config set project followed by the project ID. We now are almost ready to provision our virtual machine, but while doing so, we are going to be prompted for the zone, that is the data center owned by Google, where that VM is going to exist. In order to know what answer we need to give, let's first list out all of the possible values of zones. This is accomplished by running the command gcloud compute zones list. This just lists out all of the zones that are currently available on the Google Cloud Platform. Next, this is an important command. I'm going to actually provision Data Lab. This requires us to run the command datalab create followed by the name of our virtual machine followed by the zone. So in the command highlighted on screen now, the name of the virtual machine which is going to host our data lab is DataEng VM, and the zone that it's going to reside in is US Central 1A. We go ahead and run this command. This will have the effect of provisioning a virtual machine and loading an image of Data Lab on that virtual machine, making it available for us to use. We can now connect to that Data Lab using that little window over on the top right. Notice how it's an icon of an eye. Clicking on that icon allows us to open up a session with Data Lab on this virtual machine on a port of our choice. The port that we select is 8081, and when we go ahead and click on that port number, a new window is going to open in our browser. This browser window is effectively going to host our IPython notebook. We are ready to begin writing code and working with Python on the Google Cloud Platform. Notice how similar this web interface looks to Anaconda or to Jupyter. Let's move on to step 2. And this is a step which highlights some of the power of the GCP. We are now going to make use of Git. This is the integration between Data Lab and Git. We are going to click on an icon over on the top right, which will allow us to clone a source repository from Git. So let's click on that icon. That is the Git button. Again, keep in mind that this is going to clone a repository onto whatever virtual machine we have run Data Lab on. So this now brings us to another page. In this page, we customize the path. This path up top is where we are going to clone to. The directory location where I would like to clone to is content slash data lab. And once again, this is within the directory structure of the virtual machine hosting our data lab session. So that's fine. Let's now go ahead and specify the repository, the source repository. This is the GitHub repository with all of the training data analyst datasets provided by Google. We click on the clone repository button, and once that's done, we find that the directory structure within our data lab instance has indeed updated. All of the code from the training data analyst repo is now going to be copied over onto our local machine, or rather, to be more precise, onto our virtual machine, which is running on the Google Cloud. We can see that there is now a new directory there called training data analyst. Let's go ahead and click on it. We can navigate the file system of our virtual machine exactly as if it were an on premise or a local machine that we are working on. We notice within this that there is a directory structure. The top level directory that we are interested in is called courses. Inside this, there is another folder called machine learning. And within this machine learning folder, we find subdirectories corresponding to all of the labs which we are going to undertake in this module. You can see that there are folders for Cloud ML Engine, for feature engineering, for TensorFlow, and so on. For now, the folder that we are most interested in is the datasets folder. We will get to the others in just a little bit. So let's click on the datasets folder, and within that folder, we find right up top an IPython notebook. This is the source code that we are now going to open and explore. There is, in addition to this IPython notebook, a set of files. These files, there are three of them, correspond to the data that we are going to make use of in the training, test, and validation phases of building our model. We'll click on that IPython notebook and move on to the next phase, which is to actually query BigQuery from within Python and set up the data for our machine learning exercise.